Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Today, I'm going to work on trying to figure out what feels like a bug to me with SPIFFS on ESP32 when trying to put the SPIFFS partition before the first app partition. I'll go through all this in the stream here, but what I'm seeing on a project I'm working on is that I think the partition size is like 12K, but without doing anything and formatting it, SPIFFS is only showing less than or about half of that, like 5 or 6K, which SPIFFS does say you only get a certain percentage of the partition size due to all the things that it has to do, but I shouldn't be seeing that small of a size. And so I just want to mess around and see if I can figure it out. Like, is it a SPIFFS issue? Is it an ESP32 partition issue? I'm not sure. And then if it is, maybe log a bug or something like that. So, but as part of this, I want to start with nothing. So this is a flow that I've really started using recently that I'm enjoying. And so I'm going to show how I would set up a brand new project for the ESP32 using VSCode and Docker. I've done another video on how to debug through Docker. That's not going to be this. This is really just a flow of setting up the tool chain. The reason for this, as I recently announced, being a contractor now, I found on one of the projects I'm working on, there's a specific version of ESP IDF that I need to lock to. Whereas another project, mine personally, is on a different version of IDF. And then if I were to do work for yet another person, they might need to lock to a different version of ESP IDF. And so that's not super hard locally. You can just check out the repo and then branch switch. And so it's not like it's a huge pain, but even better, because I'm a huge Docker fan, would be to not have to worry about that all and just have it be codified, however you say it, in a config file so that just the right version is always there. You don't have to do anything, just open VS Code and off you go. So let me show you how to do that. Bellum, what's up? Thanks for joining. Always great to see you. Okay, so before I do, like, if you look over here on the left-hand side, there's nothing. Like, I have no files in this project at all. I'm going to start. Yes, I'm going to start by setting up the Docker thing, and I'm going to have to copy and paste some code here, so just bear with me. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder, and it's going to be called dev container. This is a VS Codeism. I should mention, extension wise, you need to have the remote containers. This remote containers extension needs to be installed. This is how VS Code works with Docker. And then obviously you need Docker installed on your system. I'm not going to go through all of that. So make sure you have Docker installed and the remote containers extension. Okay, so we need this dev container folder, and we need a couple of files. The first one we're going to need is a Docker file, and this tells the container how what environment to create. And so I'm going to grab, this is where I'm going to copy and paste, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. We're going to need two args up here. We're going to need a user equals, and we'll just give this any name that we want. I'm going to call it, because I'm working on troubleshooting SPIFFS, I'll just call this the SPIFFS user. It doesn't really matter what you put here. And then we need to give it a UID, and I'm going to give this 1,000. Again, I'm running on Linux already, so this works a lot better. I have no idea how this will work on Mac or Windows. I use Linux as my driver for dev work. What the UID 1,000 does is that's the user ID for my local user. So if the container creates files, aka the build output, sometimes when you do a Docker flow, you'll build things when you're within the container, and then when you come out of the container and you go to your files, it's got like a little lock symbol because the root user inside of the container created those files, not you. As the super user or whatever admin on your machine, you can always delete them and move them and things like that. But it's a little bit of a pain if you don't have a user map between yourself and inside the container. So that's some magic that's happening here. Again, Docker stuff, I'm not going to go too deep into it. And it gets used down here, you can see. And so the UID is important to be 1,000. The user, whatever you want the user to see, and you'll see where that shows up here in a minute. And now this is where we create our environment. Well, Espressif thankfully has a Docker image that they support. And so you can just pull whichever version you want. The one that I copied was using version 4.3.2. If we switch over here, we can do, I think it's on Docker Hub. If we just do a search for Espressif, here we go, IDF. You can come over here to the tags page and you can see there's a latest tag. You can use latest. I recommend pinning it to a specific version. And so you can see there's release v4.4. I don't even know. Let's go over here, go to the ESPF docs. I don't even know what the current, see, I have this for my project is pinned to 4.3.1. I don't know what the current, where are we going here? Stable is 4.4.1. Okay, so let's just go to the most recent one. And then if I don't experience the issue, maybe this is something that was fixed. So I have seen this in 4.3.2. So let's just go to the latest, 4.4.1. So I'm going to change this to 4.4.1. So this says use this base image, and then these are like run these things to enhance the environment. And this is just, I actually copied this from somebody else. This is just adding our user, our SPIFFS user, giving it the right ID. And then we add it to dial out and plug dev. This is going to allow us to, on Linux, again, this does not work the same on Mac and Windows. On Linux, this allows us to actually flash and do things over USB inside of the container. And then the run statement is when we come into the container, like be in the mode of IDF, so you can run all the commands. So if you do it this way, you do not have to install any of the IDF tooling on your local machine, which I think is really great. Anybody could grab this project now, pull it down from GitHub if they have VSCode and Docker and the remote containers thing installed, and pick up right where I am is from a development standpoint, building with the exact correct version of ESP-IDF and a bunch of those things. And so it really creates a standardization, which I really like. So, all right, so that's all we need for our Docker file. The other file that we're going to need in here is called devcontainer.js. So let's build that. It's .json, sorry. JS may work, I don't know. And then let me see. Ooh, that's going to be a little gross, I think. Maybe we'll try to go without it. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to see what. Let's just build it up from scratch. So the name of this, we'll say, is ESP-IDF. Build says, if I need to build this container, what do I use? And we're going to say, you're going to use a Docker file. And the Docker file you're going to use is Docker file, which is in the same folder as it. And then we're going to do settings. And then these are all settings that are going to go into. So VS Code has settings. These are the settings that you want to seed the container with. So IDF dot show onboarding on init false. We don't want to show that inside of our container. IDF dot tools path. We want to be opt ESP. That is where the tools path is in the official image from Espressif. Yep. Dot ESP IDF path. Oh, look at that. No, we don't want to do that. We want to just say it's opt ESP IDF. Then we'll do idf.python bin path is opt ESP. And this is where it's going to matter on the version. And so I'm going to guess on this. I don't know for sure because I haven't done the 4.1. There might be some experimentation here we got to do. 4.4 underscore pi 3.6 underscore env bin Python. This is for the IDF extension. So do we really need to do any of that? You know what? Let's skip this for a second. We'll come back to this. We'll come back to it. Okay. I don't think we need any of those. We might need the CMake. So we can also say, here's some extensions that we want to be available within the container. The only one I'm going to do for now is CMake, because I think that needs to be in there for the build. Oh, and we'll also do this other one, ms VSCode.cpp tools. So those are extensions. Again, if I click on the extensions tab here, I have extensions installed. But again, we're going to be VSCode-ing within a container. And so we need to tell VS Code, here are the extensions to install in that container environment. You got to think of it as two completely separate environments. And so those are the only extensions we will put in there. This is one that I learned just through trial and error. User mprobe, login interactive shell. I don't remember why. I just remember that that's needed. And then the run args. So I want my ESP32. I'm just going to use a little dev board here. I want it to be available within the container. And again, on Linux, this works so that I can program it. So the run args that I'm going to pass when Docker launches this is device equals /dev /tty USB0. So that'll make it available within side. And then the last thing I need to tell it, if we've done everything right, is what remote user do I want to be inside of the container? And if you remember, we called that SPIFFS. So we'll do that. Okay. I don't know if that's going to work at all. Now that we have it all set up, the way we find out is down here in the lower corner. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that. This little green thing will appear if you have remote containers installed. If we click on that, I can say reopen in container, and it's going to try and build an image and then launch a container with everything that we need. So let's just see what happens. Yeah. So you notice it shows the get started here because this is inside a container VS Code. It like switches the context of VS Code. So we'll give that a minute to go. Thorax, great seeing you. Hoping to be doing this a little more often. Thanks so much for always hopping in on the Discord and answering questions and stuff. You're awesome. Okay, it does take a minute to build the image. We can probably just click this and show the log. Yeah. So you'll see it's going to have to download the 4.4.1 expressive image. This is a one-time hit. Once you have the image locally on your machine, if you do this flow for any additional ones that use 4.4.1, this is instantaneous. It doesn't have to do all this downloading and extracting. So if I had done 4.3.2 or whatever I had been working in before, we wouldn't have to wait so long. But we'll do the latest just for fun. Excuse me. I guess in the meantime, I could be preparing like a main. Guess we could do that. Let me come to like my user here and maybe just grab one of my mains. There's not a whole lot to it. I suppose we could do it while we're waiting. Is that? I've never tried that. Let's try it. Let's do a, well, let's see. We need to have a folder. Let's create a new folder. I don't know if this will actually work. Yeah, while it's building, it's probably in a state where it's like, can't make any changes because it's got to mount the file system and stuff in. We're almost there. We're at 820 out of 890 almost, so should be there soon. Hope everybody's week is off to a good start. First week self-employed for me. Pretty exciting. Like, what else would you expect on day one? It's going well. It's going well on day one. Okay, cool. Let's see if this finishes without blowing up. Oh, okay. This you got to get used to. Like, this is going to happen. Like, and then you just have to figure it out. It's going to say it failed spectacularly, and then we just need to figure out what it is. When you say open locally, it'll show you the output here. So what is failing? Mount. Let's pull this over here so we can. Container started. Trap exit. I have not seen that before, so I'm not sure. Oh, I know exactly why. Right here. Okay. No such file or directory. You know why? Because my device isn't plugged in. So this is a little bit of a weird part of this. Just to start the container, and I'll show this, you have to have the device plugged in. So I'm going to plug in my ESP32, and then I'm going to do this again. Let's do reopening container. Now, again, it's not going to have to redo that whole download and stuff because it already has it. So it should either succeed quickly or fail quickly. You can see here, installing server. Actually, you can't see. It's behind my head. Okay, user bin ZSH does not exist, and that is okay. That is a different fix. That's also behind my head that you can't see. But we are in. You can see the way we can tell that is up here at the top. It says dev container ESP IDF. So right now, and down here in the corner, it also says dev container ESP IDF. We are inside of a container. So again, if I didn't have ESP IDF or Python or DFU util or any of the things that you would install tool-wise for ESP IDF on my machine, this would still work. All I need is Docker, VSCode, and the remote containers. So it doesn't look like much now, but a lot is happening here. And then I should be able to launch. It's saying it cannot launch user bin ZSH, and there is a way to fix this that I'm trying to remember. I'm glad I'm doing this video because I'm not remembering. What VS Code tries to do to be helpful is use the same shell. I use ZSH locally, so it's trying to use the same one inside of the container. And we just need to tell it, don't do that. Like use a different one. And I'm trying to remember what that was. That was probably one of the settings that I said we could skip and just ignore. Stand by. There we go. Yeah, it was. I stopped doing the settings before I should have stopped doing the settings. So I still don't think we need all this IDF settings because we're actually not going to install the IDF extension. But what we do need is this search terminal.integrated integrated dot shell dot Linux. Yes. Terminal.integrated.shell.linux. And we're going to set that to bin bash. So just use the bash shell. Okay. Anytime you make a change to the Docker file or the dev container JSON, you just click on the green down here and say rebuild container. And it'll start over again. And now I should be able to open a shell. I do. Okay, great. So this is great. And you can see here the user that we specified is SPIFFS. So it created, this prompt is me as the SPIFFS user inside the container. And I have access to all the things here. And if you see from right here, I should be able to do idf.py. Not found. Okay, let's do source, opt, ESP, whatever, idf, export.sh. Okay, now we have access to it. idf.py.build. Again, none of that needs to be installed on my local machine. Okay, and so from here we can do idf.py, all the things, build, flash, monitor. Great. So that is our base setup. Now let's get to a point where we can recreate the issue that I've seen. So what we need to do is up here, we need to create a new folder. We'll call it main. And then I don't remember. It's been a while since I've set up like the basic project. So within here, let's create a cmake list.text. Inside of here, we're going to do an IDF component register sources main.cpp. I don't know that this is really necessary at this point, but we'll say include dir, just the current one, or dot. I think is fine. And then we don't need, well, we are going to need actually some requires. We're going to need SPI flash. We're going to need NVS flash, I think. We're going to need SPIFFS. We'll see what else we need, but I think that's it for now. Okay. All right, and now let's do a main.cpp. And then let's see how lightweight we can go here. If we do, we're going to have to do some includes here that I'm not sure about. C void at main. And in here, I want to do what? ESP, I can't even remember the syntax for the log stuff because I always use my own personal logger. Let's just grab a simple project. Oh, you know what? I actually have one in GitHub. That'll be super easy to do. The reason I didn't have this all prepared ahead of time is because I did want to go through the process of showing how it's set up. So yeah, Thorex, I am now doing freelance contract work full time and some of my own stuff too. That's the idea, so I can have some time to work on my stuff too. So let's grab, oh, look at this. This is going to be even smaller than I would have made it. Okay. This is from a project I've done. Yeah, I like all the C++ ways of doing this. Thread, which means we are going to actually need to include, I think it's called pthread, something like that. Okay, so now, since we're in the directory here, ls main, we should be able to do idf.py build. Oh, yes, we need a top level cmake lists, or else it has no idea what to do. Okay, so top level, new file, cmake list.text. And we've got to give it just a few things here. This is from, we're not going to call it, we're going to call it SPIFFS debug. Okay. Now let's try and build and see what happens. I'm not expecting this to work first try because it never does. Cannot find source file, comma. Obviously, I've done something incorrectly. CMake lists. Wait, this is in, oh, main CMake lists. Oh, I don't think I need a comma there. There we go. Okay. And typing all this stuff. What? Why now are you upset? Unsafe repository is owned by someone else. I have not seen that before. That is wild. I'm not sure if this is a new 4.41 thing or what, because I have not seen that. It did start a build folder here, though. You can see that, where it started building stuff. It created an SDK config for me. No sources given to target. I wonder if we've changed how, and if there are some changes in 4.4.1. Get rid of that. I say main.cpp, which is right. Sources. IDF component register, that all looks right. I might have to switch off of 4.4.1 and mess with that later because build files cannot be regenerated correctly. This is really my flow for working on several projects currently, but like I said, I've never done 4.4.1, so I wonder. Oh, it's not liking my include dir. All right. We got to figure this out. Sorry. Oh, include dirs. And typing. Let's try that. There we go. That is not the error message I would have expected for a typo. But okay, sweet. It's building. Our very simple, like, a few lines of code here. All right. Okay. How are we doing on time? Yeah, this took a little longer than I wanted, but that's where we are. Okay, hopefully this says like it's built and everything works. Okay, now we should be able to do idf.py flash monitor. And again, because I'm on Linux and the way Linux is able to really do Docker nice with the device stuff, this should work. I make no guarantees of how this will work on Mac or Windows. So let's see what happens. Okay, check that out. Really cool. All right, debugging in VSCode, which is obviously what we expect to see. We're not going to be debugging step debugging, but okay, that works. I'm going to hit control. No, actually, it's control this thing. There we go. A couple of things that we will note. It says detected size 4 larger than size 2 megs, 4 megs, detected 4 instead of 2. This is great because all we can need to do here is we just do idf.py menuconfig. And oh, why is it hating menuconfig? Is that right? I'm doing that right? Yeah, menuconfig. Why does it hate it? Unsupported locale setting. Okay. Python IDF 4.4 Pi 3.8. Well, maybe this is new territory. And how do we solve new territory? We don't. Somebody on Google's probably already solved it. ESP IDF. This is another reason I really like Docker. This may have worked on my local machine because of other environment things. So I wonder, well, let's just try this fix right here that it says to try. Inside the container. Let's create a readme.md. Paste those in there. And let's just try this. Export lc underscore all equals n us.utf8 cannot change locale. Okay. And yeah, the other one is lc type. That seemed to work. And then it says sudo dpackage. And again, I can do this without worrying at all because I'm inside a container. Like this is doing nothing to my local machine. Another great thing about Docker. Oh, yeah, you don't have to do sudo. Well, but I am a specific user. Ooh, is that a problem? Please check your locale. Language unset. Maybe that's the problem. This has got to be an environment issue. Unsupported locale setting. Yeah, this seems like a Python thing. Please check that your locale settings are supported and installed on your system. I'm telling you, this is an issue with. Yeah, and let's. I don't want to waste time on this. I'll figure this out another time. So let's come back here. I'm just going to change this to 4.3.2. I think is what I use in another project. Or 1. Anyway, let's do that. Again, I made a change in the Docker file, so I'm going to do this, rebuild container. We'll show the log. Oh, do I not have 4.3.2? I know I have 4.3.1. Well, we're going to let it download again. Sorry. Waste. While we're doing that, let's get the actual code ready that we're here to test. Okay. Let's come to the ESP docs. Let's go to 4.3.2 because that's what we'll be in. Is 4.3.2 not a thing? Did I just make that up? 4.3, whatever. And let's search for SPIFFS. Wow, this is being really fast. Okay, seriously. I don't know why that's because of the version. No. Is searching just broke? Man, this is a rough go on the stream. Let's see. System. I don't know how to manually get there. API guides. It's a storage. Oh, maybe it's back up here. Storage, here we go. SPIFFS. Okay. And then we just need, let's go to application example. Yeah, here we go. And then here are all of the, whatever the API calls. We're extracting. We're almost there. Okay. Let's get in the container already. Okay. Let's remove our build folder. So that is gone. And now, I don't know, does this work? IDF.py version? No. Oh, yeah, I gotta source. Yeah. Oh, actually, I think it says it right here. No. There you go. 4.3.2, you can see just by having the new image. Okay. Let's do menuconfig. Yeah, okay. So something in the environment of 4.4.1 is broken. And again, maybe that worked. That would have worked on my local machine, but it didn't in the Docker image container environment is like the cleanest. There's only the things in it that you put in it. And so whatever's in that IDF 4.4.1, either their image is broken or, well, their image is broken because I haven't done anything to alter the environment other than add a user. And so I'll mess with that some other time and probably submit a bug to the Espresso folks on that because that shouldn't do that. As you can see, just by switching to 4.3.2, everything works again. So great. What we were fixing back here in 4.3.2 is, I think it's component config, ESP32 specific. I can't ever remember. Another trick that I learned from Eager is if you do a /, you can do searching flash frequency. We want the flash size and change it to 4 megs. Here we go. ESP tool flash size. Okay, serial flash config. So the flash size, we're going to change to 4. And that should get rid of that error that we were seeing. Although this red you're seeing is because we were in 4.4.1, so it created our SDK config in 4.4.1. And so these are all like, hey, these aren't, I don't know what these are. And 4.3.2, I believe is what that means. But while we are in here, not only are we going to do that, we're also going to do a partition table. And we are going to, by default, you get this partition table, single factory app, no OTA. We are going to change that. And I will show you how we're going to change that here in just a second. Because I got to pull up an example. Again, always examples. Wonder if I can find the raw one that you get. Let's do that. Because I want to talk about a couple of things around this. Let's try another search. Search must be, oh, here we go. Partition tables. Here we go. Okay. This is single factory, no OTA. So if we come back to here, single factory app, no OTA. That's what we're dealing with, okay? And the equivalent of that is this right here. So let's copy this. And back here in VS Code, we're going to do, just at our root level here, I'm going to say partitions.csv. And in there, we're going to put that. And so we've got this NVS partition that starts at 9,000 and is of size hex 6,000. And then we have this phi init, which is at F000 and is of size 1,000. And then the factory app is right here. So this, if we come back to menuconfig, this is the partition table it's using. We could actually come in here and say custom partition table, use partitions.csv. Okay. This would be the exact same as choosing one of the out-of-the-box ones. And so what we're going to do is we're going to X out of here. Save configuration, yes. And let's just make sure that this builds. And you'll see the partition table it's using is that stuff that we just specified. Whenever you update menuconfig, it rebuilds everything. So it takes a second. Okay. And just to make sure that works, we'll do flash monitor. It'll go ahead and program it right quick. And ta-da, we're back here. Okay, great. Let's exit out of there, clear. Okay, now let's talk about partitions for a second. You can see the NVS, that is where things like your Wi-Fi credentials are stored. The factory is where your app is, and then we'll talk about phi init here, and we'll have the docs talk about phi init. If we come down here, this is for storing phi initialization data. This allows it to be configured on a per device instead of in firmware. Now it says right here, in the default configuration, the phi partition is not used and phi initialization data is compiled into the app itself. As such, this partition can be removed from the partition table to save space. I actually don't fully know what phi data is. I think a phi is like Ethernet stuff, but in any case, it's saying in the default configuration, which is what we're using, it's not even used. So this is an example in the Espressive thing where this is taking up, for those of us that don't always remember hex things, we'll pull up our calculator here. We'll change the mode here to hexadecimal. I know this because I did it recently, but I always forget. You can see that the decimal version of that is 4K. This is a 4K partition that is just lost. Like, The IDF's not using it, but your device is partitioning it off and making it unusable. So that's 4K of whether that's heap or flash memory for applications that you're just losing by using the default configuration. So I recommend getting rid of that unless you know exactly what it's for and how you want to use it and change the configuration to use it, because as we just found out, it is not used by default. Another big one, if we come up here, this is a custom or a common version of OTA. And the way this works is you've got the same NVS, you have an OTA data partition, which is the partition that says like which OTA partition do I load code from. And it's still, you can see here, still has this phi init, which again is not used. Factory, which in this case is a megabyte, and then it has two OTA partitions, 0 and 1, and they're each a meg a piece. What you might not realize if you don't read more into the documentation is that most likely this 1 megabyte factory partition is completely wasted on your device. And I say that because if you come down here in the docs, factory, here we go. Is the default app partition. The bootloader will execute the factory app unless there it sees a partition of type data OTA, in which case it reads this partition to determine which OTA image to boot. So again, if it sees this OTA data partition, it's going to read that and then load a program from OTA 0 or OTA 1. And it says OTA never updates the factory partition. If you want to conserve flash usage in an OTA project, you can remove the factory partition and use OTA 0 instead. So in this example that they give up here, this is a megabyte of wasted flash. You'll never use it because it's going to load OTA 0 or OTA 1. And as you update that via OTA, it's going to set a bit in this OTA data partition to say, hey, use OTA 0. Oh, after the next update, use OTA 1. And it just flip-flops back and forth. It will never, ever use this factory partition. But again, it's this segmented off piece of your flash that is now gone. You can't use it. And so when you look at these things, this is where copy pasting can get you in trouble if you don't read, and we all do it to get started. But when you're really looking for production level and trying to squeeze out all the bytes, in this particular example that they give, you can delete this phi init and you can delete this factory app as well. And you get 1 meg plus what I say 4 kilobytes, 1 meg and 4 kilobytes of flash space back that you can use for your code. So, all right, that's not the purpose of all this stream. We're like super far into this and still not to why we are even here. And that is one of the things I wanted to do. So the factory partition has to, I won't bore you with the docs, it has to start at this 10,000 barrier. It can be at 10,000, it could be at 20,000. And if we pull back up our calculator, the partition information is at offset 8,000, hex 8,000. And that's why you'll see the very first offset in this file is at 9,000. But let's actually do hex 9,000. And then you'll see the size of the NVS partition is 6,000. So if we add 6,000 to 9,000, the result is F000. Okay? That happens to be where we are starting our phi init partition, which is great. We're stacking them just right on the line together, so we're not having empty spaces in between that don't get used. And so F00, the size of it is 1,000. So if we do F00 plus 1,000, we get 10,000, which is the start of our app partition, which is great. And so what we could presumably do is put something else in here. What we can't do, we can't just say, hey, start my factory app partition down at F000, because again, it has to be on this 10,000 hex line. And so back to where I was originally looking at this, let's look at their sorry. this OTA data. Okay, so they just made the size of NVS smaller here. Okay, so let's take this example. Yeah, let's go with this. Let's see if we can reproduce here. In my case is an OTA case, but I want to see if it has anything to do with OTA or not. So let's. No, darn it. Okay, so in this case, let's bring our calculator back up. Our NVS is going from 9,000. It's only 4,000 hex size here. And then we have this OTA data. So if we do 9,000 plus 4,000, we get D00, which is where we're at here. Now, the size that we've given this is 2,000, but let's not give it 2,000. Let's get rid of the phi init. Let's change the name of this to SPIFFS. The type we need to change. I don't quite remember what that is. We'll look that up in a second. But we're going to say it's going to start at 9,000, and we have all the way up to 10,000 here, right? And so if we look at that, if we say 10,000 minus D000, we get 3,000. So we can change the size of this to 3,000 and still be okay, which means, again, that it should be 12K in size. Just over 12K right here. Okay, and then let's see how we need to actually, well, I'll look it up over here so I can keep the screen up. SPIFFS again. It's really the partition thing. So let me just bring it up on the screen I have it on. I think it's just data. Oh, data. SPIFFS file system. We can always look at the. Does it give us an example of a? All these things, like you know when you've done them once, but then you forget. Partition example. Here we go. Storage, and then it's of type data of subtype SPIFFS. Okay. So let's just go with that. If we come over to here, let's call it storage. Storage, it's of type data and it's of subtype SPIFFS. Okay, great. Now, what we should be able to do is I'm going to move the window over, but all I'm doing here, if I can get my window back open. All I'm doing here is in the SPIFFS documentation, I'm going to do some of this stuff. And actually, let's just look at the example here. We're not going to do all that. Heck, let's just take it all. Take the whole thing. Stop messing around. Trying to be tricky. Okay, let's come into our main. And delete everything and put this in. We're going to move a bunch of this stuff. We have to initialize SPIFFS, the base path or setting to /SPIFFS. Partition label is null. That's weird. I thought just gave it storage, but okay. We have the SPIFFS register, so we'll do that. ESP SPIFFS info. Is this a latest version? That might be the problem. Well, we'll see if it builds. Partition size, total and used. That's all we need. We're going to get rid of everything else in here. Cool. Then we'll do standard. Let's see. do while true, standard, this thread, have to re-include all that. We'll have to include standard this thread, sleep for okay, let's see if I got everything right. Okay, it hates undefined reference to @main. Yep. Use C++. Whoa. C++. Okay. Let's see what happens. SPIFFS mount failed. Oh, and then it formats. Yeah, this is yeah. Okay. So check this out. This is exactly what I'm seeing. Partition size total. That's in bytes. Okay. So this is exactly, we finally made it. Are we under an hour? We are. We're 3 minutes under an hour. Sorry. Okay. This is what we came for. Let's go to decimal. Okay. So this is the size. Yeah. 12 to, shoot. What was it? 12,288. We're getting 4,016. 33% of the partition size is actually available to us. So if we try to put anything on this partition, this SPIFFS partition, over 4,016 bytes, probably a little less because of overhead for file, information, it's not going to work. And so what's happening there? That's the question. And if we come over here to SPIFFS, there are some caveats. Here about overview. Notes. And so there's these things like SPIFFS does not support directories. It's flat structures. It's not a real-time stack. It does not detect or handle bad blocks. I think it was actually in the SPIFFS. Let's do SPIFFS GitHub. In the actual SPIFFS, I think this is is the official? Features, notice. This might not be it. Doesn't say it's a fork of anything though. I can't remember where it was, but it said you should only expect to get about 75 or 80% of the partition size, I think. And now I'm forgetting. Say your flash has and you can have blocks. And so I think what could be happening here is that we might just be, there's some piece of knowledge here we're missing of like aligning it on physical block sizes or something like that. Because what I wanted to, so just to show you, because I'm going to work on this for a bit, but I won't bore you with continued torture of me doing that. If we come back to the partitions here, And then let's do data. Well, let's just move it. Let's comment it out. Like this. And then let's put it after the factory. So let's say storage data SPIFFS. And then I actually don't need to specify the start point because it'll automatically figure it out a meg after this. But then let's just give it the same size here and see what happens. 0x3000. Let's do that. And let's, I'm going to do idf.py. I'm going to do erase flash. This will ensure that everything's clear. The partition table is gone. We don't have any artifacts left over. And see if it has the same issue. Oh, Eager's here. Eager, you're gonna solve this for us. Okay. You're saying 3 sectors is way too small for SPIFFS. I think it needs at least 2 sectors of overhead. And maybe that's all that we're doing here. What did I... Oh, date? Yeah, date is not a valid. Data. So the original that I was using here was this 3000 size. And now all I've done is move it after the factory partition. But it's not being the size I hope it would be is really the problem here. But you're gonna know the answer to this. I know it. I was gonna submit a bug if I couldn't figure it out. So you're saying it needs 2 full sectors of overhead. Yeah, look at that. 416. So based on that, if I add just a single sector more, I should see it should double. Like it should go to 8. Let's do it. Eager, you're the man. Or woman, I guess. No, your profile picture's the man. You're the man. Yeah, look at that. We get more space there. So I guess, so what I was reading was you get about 75 to 80%. I guess that's relative based on how many sectors of size you use. So again, you're only doing 2 sectors. We're like, will it even fit into? Like if we change this down to 2, like will we have any usable space? I'm guessing not. Flash monitor. Or maybe it'll just crash and burn and error out somehow. So we did at least 2 sectors. Yeah, look at that. We go store 251 bytes on that. Okay. Eager. That's it. That's all I need to know. I thought there was something else going on. It's just the fact that it needs a bunch of that size. So what I was getting, again, I read somewhere in the SPIFFS documentation to expect 75 to 80%. I was thinking of 3000. Pull the calculator up. If we change this back to hexadecimal and do 3000, I'm thinking, oh, I should have 12288. And then I should be getting, at least 75% of that. I didn't do that right, not 3000. I was thinking, I should have like 9K of space, but yeah, obviously they shouldn't say 75%. The documentation, I'll have to find where I read that because I'll submit a thing saying like, don't say 75%, say like the size of the partition minus the overhead, which sounds like it's 2 sectors. That would be super helpful. Yeah, like you're saying, like I read this somewhere on the SPIFFS wiki. I'll go in and see if I can submit something to them to say maybe call it out a little better, because the only thing that I found that obviously that I can remember is this like 75 or 80% of the partition size, which is misleading, because if your partition size is too small, then obviously in this case, you know, what did I do? I did 2000. So 8,192 bytes. Let's change it back to decimal. 8,192 bytes. I got what was it again? 251. 251 divided by 8,192. Yeah, I'm getting 3% of the partition for file storage, which again, where I was going was, is that a bug? No, it's just oh yeah, Igor, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah, first day on the job, I guess you would say. And one of the things I'm trying to figure out is, in the project I'm working on, we're having a little bit of a SPIFFS issue. Not this one specifically. I found this because I was trying really hard to put the SPIFFS partition before the first app partition, because otherwise it's just wasted space. But that's obviously not going to work unless I bump the image, the app thing, but I've got to move that by 10,000 if I remember correctly. Like this, the closest I could move this factory app partition would be to 20,000 hex. And so, and then that creates a much bigger hole that I don't have anything to do with. So I will just leave a small gap here. I'll actually probably just expand my NVS partition and make it a little bigger so we could use it. And then have the OTA. I'm actually doing an OTA one, so I'll butt them up to each other. Cool. Well, we're over an hour here, but an hour and 7 minutes, but we got there. Igor, thanks so much for joining the stream. You were awesome and always an incredible resource for all of the answers. So this is great. I'll actually probably write a little blog post on this as well and try and track down on the SPIFFS wiki, you know, where I can maybe suggest they call it out a little better, because that makes perfect sense. 2 sectors, and you're left with, you know, about what's left after that. So, cool. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the stream today. Hopefully you learned something from the Docker setup. Again, you saw how easy it was for us to switch between. Igor, if you're still here and have 1 minute, I want to show you something that we found earlier on the stream. This will take just a second. I'm doing this in Docker. So right now I'm using the 4.3.2. So if you see, if I do idf-py version, you'll see it's 4.3.2. I can run menuconfig from in here. And let me actually just delete my SDK config to show this. If I do idf.py menuconfig, it'll create an SDK config and it'll launch up and launch like this. So let me get out of that. Let me get rid of my SDK config. Delete permanently. Okay. And now if I change this to 4.4.1, the newest SPIFFS image, or the latest stable, and then I reopen this under that in a container, rebuild container. Oh, it gets rid of the links. Yeah, I'll look at issue 8593 on the repo. Okay, so now if I do source opt esp idf export.sh, and now you'll see if I do version, we're on 4.4.1. If I do menuconfig from in here, at least earlier on the stream, it does not work. I get an error about locale. Bad depths log version. Let me get rid of the build directory. I get this unsupported locale setting. So this is using the raw Espressif Docker image. So I'm not sure. I was going to dig into this later to figure out what's going on, but something it does not like. Um, so I can log an issue for that. But something has apparently changed in the build thing that in a perfectly clean Dockerized environment, menuconfig does not launch using just the official Espressif image. So anyway, if you're still around, just wanted to show that to you really quick before you hopped off the stream. I'm not sure what's going on there, but okay, open an issue. Yep, I will boil it down to the simplest form, and I'll submit an issue on the repo. Thanks so much. Again, thank you so much for stopping by and for answering the SPIFFS question that probably would have taken me a lot longer to figure out. Really, really appreciate that. So otherwise, everybody else that joined, thanks so much for being here. Super helpful, at least for me, stream today. Hopefully you found some value in that as well. Again, short plug. I'm going to try and be doing these a few times a week. If you have any ESP32 specific questions, or you're stuck on something, or you want to see something on an ESP32, I'm open to suggestions for the stream. Just shoot those along to me. Join the Discord if you're not in there. Send along suggestions. Email me. I might grab one of those and do a stream on it so that we can all learn together. Otherwise, until next time, thanks so much for joining, and I hope everybody has an amazing rest of your day.